Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy History Facts. I'm so glad you've joined me tonight. Tonight, we will take a calm journey far back into the past, into ancient towns, warm desert temples, peaceful farms, and quiet stone cities. Along the way, we will meet one of the most familiar companions humans have ever known, the cat. Cats have walked beside human history for a very long time, long before modern homes and glowing lights. They moved quietly through ancient streets and dusty villages. As we travel through history together, you may discover surprising stories, curious traditions, and small peaceful moments where humans and cats shared the same world. But for now, you don't need to do anything at all. Just settle in, relax, and allow your mind to wander gently through the quiet pages of history. If you're ready, let's begin. Long before great cities rose from stone and brick, humans lived in small settlements scattered across wide landscapes. These early communities often grew near rivers, forests, and open plains where food and water could be found. During this distant time in history, people were beginning to change the way they lived. Instead of constantly moving from place to place, many groups started building simple homes and staying in one location. They planted crops in the soil and stored the harvest carefully for the months ahead. And where humans gathered food, other creatures soon followed. Among the quiet visitors that began appearing near these early settlements were small wild cats. These early cats were not pets, and they were not searching for friendship. They were hunters, alert and cautious, moving silently through tall grasses and shadowed corners of the land. Their sharp eyes and soft padded feet made them excellent predators of small animals. At first, humans likely noticed them only in passing. Perhaps a farmer working in a field saw a slender shape slip quickly through the crops, or maybe someone sitting near a fire at dusk noticed glowing eyes watching from the darkness just beyond the village. But something interesting soon became clear. Where people stored grain, mice, and other tiny animals gathered in great numbers. These creatures were drawn to the warmth and abundance of food inside the growing settlements. And where mice appeared, the wildcats were never far away. Without planning it, humans had created a place that was very attractive to cats. The villages provided shelter, warmth, and a steady supply of prey. For the cats, this was an ideal hunting ground. Slowly and quietly, these animals began spending more time near human homes. They remained cautious, keeping their distance, but their presence became more common with each passing season. People likely began to notice something helpful about these mysterious hunters. The mice that threatened valuable grain supplies seemed to disappear when cats were nearby. Grain was extremely important in early farming societies. It represented months of hard work and was often the difference between comfort and hunger during colder seasons. Protecting that food was essential for survival. In a quiet and natural way, cats were helping, unlike dogs, which humans actively trained and welcomed into their communities. Cats seemed to choose their own path. They came close to humans, not because they were invited, but because the environment suited them. Over time, something subtle began to happen. Instead of chasing the cats away, many people allowed them to remain nearby. Perhaps a farmer left scraps of food outside. Perhaps children watched them with curiosity rather than fear. The relationship between humans and cats was beginning. Though neither side may have fully understood it yet, the cats still lived with independence. They hunted, explored, and disappeared into the night whenever they wished. But they had discovered a world where food was plentiful and danger was limited. Humans, meanwhile, were slowly realizing that these quiet animals served a valuable purpose. Historians believe that this simple partnership may have started in regions of the ancient Middle East, where early farming communities flourished. Warm climates, rich soil, and steady agriculture created the perfect conditions for both humans and cats to live side by side. Over many generations, these cautious encounters slowly transformed into something more familiar. Wild cats that felt comfortable near humans were more likely to remain in the settlements. Their young grew up in an environment where human activity was part of everyday life. Little by little, the distance between people and cats grew smaller. Yet, even as this bond developed, cats never lost their sense of mystery. They continued to move quietly through shadows, appearing suddenly and vanishing just as quickly. Their calm gaze and silent steps gave them an almost magical presence in these early communities. And so, in the quiet fields and simple villages of the ancient world, a gentle partnership began to form. A partnership that would slowly travel across continents and centuries, shaping one of the longest and most fascinating relationships between humans and animals. But history holds many more peaceful moments in this story, because in time, cats would move even closer to the center of human life, especially where food was carefully protected and stored. As early farming communities grew larger, people began building special places to store their harvest. After months of careful work in the fields, grains such as wheat and barley were gathered and kept inside large containers, clay jars, or simple stone rooms. These early storage places were known as granaries. Granaries were extremely important to ancient life. They protected food from rain, wind, and insects. They allowed communities to survive through colder months when fresh crops could not grow. But even the strongest walls could not keep out every small visitor. The smell of stored grain drifted softly through the air, and it quickly attracted mice, rats, and other small creatures. These animals were clever and persistent. They squeezed through tiny openings, dug beneath walls, and climbed into storage jars. For early farmers, this was a serious problem. A large group of mice could damage a surprising amount of grain. What had been meant to feed families through an entire season could slowly disappear. And yet, nature already had its own quiet solution. Wild cats had long been skilled hunters of small animals. Their sharp hearing allowed them to detect the faintest rustle in the dark. Their flexible bodies helped them move silently through narrow spaces. When cats discovered these grain stores filled with mice, they found an ideal hunting ground. During quiet evenings, when human activity slowed and shadows grew longer, the cats would slip closer to the edges of the village. They moved along walls, through tall grasses, and across rooftops, always watching, always listening. Inside the granaries, the mice were busy searching for scattered grains, but hidden among the darkness, patient hunters were waiting. With sudden speed and perfect timing, the cats would catch their prey. Their quick movements helped keep the mouse population under control, even if the people inside the village did not always see it happen. Over time, farmers began to notice something interesting. Granaries where cats often appeared seemed to suffer less damage from rodents. The grain lasted longer. The losses were smaller. It was a quiet discovery, but an important one. Rather than seeing cats as wild strangers, many people began to view them as helpful neighbors. The animals were still independent and cautious, but their presence was now welcomed rather than feared. Some historians believe this moment played a major role in the early domestication of cats. Unlike other animals that humans carefully trained or raised for work, cats slowly joined human communities on their own terms. They stayed where hunting was easy and where people allowed them to remain. Humans, in return, benefited from the cat's natural skills. Sometimes, villagers may have left small scraps of food outside their homes, especially during seasons when prey was less common. These simple gestures may have encouraged certain cats to stay nearby. Young kittens growing up close to human homes would slowly become less fearful. They learned that the sounds of people, fires, and daily activity were not dangerous. Over many generations, these cats became slightly different from their wild ancestors. They still hunted, they still roamed freely, but they were becoming comfortable, living close to humans. Elsewhere in the ancient world, similar patterns began appearing wherever agriculture spread, in fertile valleys, beside winding rivers, and across wide plains. Farming communities created environments filled with stored food, and with stored food came mice, and with mice came cats. The relationship between humans and cats was never loud or dramatic. It grew slowly, like a quiet understanding shared between two very different creatures. Humans offered a safe environment with plenty of prey. Cats offered their skill as hunters. Together, they formed a partnership that required very few words. In the evenings, as ancient villages settled into calm darkness, small feline shapes could often be seen moving gracefully between buildings. Their eyes reflected faint light from distant fires. Their paws made almost no sound against the earth, and somewhere inside the quiet granaries, the gentle balance between food, survival, and nature continued, watched over by these silent guardians of the harvest. But the story of cats in human history was only beginning. In time, one ancient civilization would come to admire cats more deeply than almost any other society in the world. In that place, cats would not only guard grain stores, they would be honored, protected, and even worshipped. As centuries passed and human civilizations grew more complex, the quiet presence of cats continued to spread. In many places, they remained helpful hunters near farms and storage houses. But in one remarkable land along a great river, cats would come to hold a very special place in society. This land was ancient Egypt. The Egyptian world grew beside the calm, steady waters of the Nile River. Each year, the river overflowed its banks, leaving behind rich soil that allowed crops to grow in abundance. Because of this gift of fertile land, Egyptian communities were able to build large cities, magnificent temples, and a powerful civilization that lasted for thousands of years. Life along the Nile depended greatly on agriculture. Fields of grain stretched across the riverbanks, and enormous quantities of food were harvested and stored to feed the population. Just as in earlier farming villages, stored grain attracted mice and rats, and once again, cats proved themselves to be excellent protectors of these valuable supplies. Egyptians quickly noticed how effective cats were at controlling pests. Their quiet hunting helped protect food stores that were essential for the entire nation. But something deeper also began to grow. The people of ancient Egypt observed animals closely. They believed that many animals carried special qualities that reflected the powers of nature and the divine world. Cats, with their graceful movements and mysterious behavior, seemed to possess something truly unique. They were gentle and calm when resting beside a family, yet incredibly swift and powerful when hunting. Their eyes glowed softly in dim light. Their quiet steps allowed them to appear and disappear almost like shadows. To many Egyptians, these qualities felt almost magical. Over time, cats became admired not only for their usefulness, but also for their beauty and character. Families often welcomed them into their homes, where they slept near hearths, wandered through courtyards, and watched the busy life of the household. Unlike many other animals kept by humans, cats seemed to carry themselves with a sense of independence. They accepted affection, but never appeared fully controlled. They came and went freely, choosing their own resting places and exploring the surrounding streets. This independence fascinated the Egyptians. Artists began to include cats in paintings and carvings that decorated temple walls and tombs. These images often showed cats sitting proudly beside their owners, watching birds, or quietly observing daily life. In some artworks, cats were even shown wearing decorative collars, suggesting that they were cherished members of the household. Historians believe that by this time, many Egyptian families had formed strong emotional bonds with their cats. These animals were not only hunters, protecting food supplies, they were companions that shared the quiet rhythms of daily life. A cat might rest beside a farmer returning from the fields. Another might curl up near children playing in the courtyard. In cooler evenings, cats could often be seen sleeping peacefully near warm cooking fires. Their presence added comfort to the home. Elsewhere in the city streets, cats moved freely among marketplaces, temple entrances, and shaded alleyways. People allowed them to roam without disturbance, understanding that they were valuable guardians against pests. But the respect Egyptians felt for cats did not stop with admiration. As religious beliefs grew more complex, cats slowly became connected with divine protection and sacred power. One particular goddess would soon become closely linked with these elegant animals. Her image, gentle yet powerful, would strengthen the already deep bond between Egyptians and their beloved cats. In time, this connection would transform the status of cats in Egyptian society in a way that was truly extraordinary. Because in ancient Egypt, cats were not simply helpful animals, they were honored, protected, and in many ways, deeply sacred. In ancient Egypt, religion touched nearly every part of daily life. The Egyptians believed that the world was filled with powerful forces of nature, and many of these forces were represented by gods and goddesses. These divine beings were often connected to animals because animals showed qualities that people admired or respected. Some animals showed strength, others showed patience or wisdom, and the cat, with its calm beauty and sudden power, came to represent a unique kind of protection. Over time, cats became closely connected with a beloved Egyptian goddess known as Bastet. Bastet was often shown as a graceful woman with the head of a cat, or sometimes as a full cat sitting proudly. Her image appeared in statues, temple carvings, and small household figures made from bronze or stone. To the people of Egypt, Bastet represented warmth, protection, home, and quiet joy. She was seen as a guardian of families and a protector of the household. Just as cats protected food from pests, Bastet symbolically protected people from harm and disorder. Her presence was believed to bring peace and balance to everyday life. Temples dedicated to Bastet became important places of worship. One of the most famous stood in a city known today as Bubastis, where large gatherings and festivals were held in her honor. During these celebrations, people traveled from many parts of Egypt to visit her temple. Music filled the air, Boats traveled along the Nile, carrying joyful visitors, and offerings were brought to show respect for the goddess. Many of these offerings included small statues of cats. These figures were often carefully crafted, showing cats sitting calmly with elegant posture. Some had delicate markings, jewelry, or carved details that reflected the beauty people saw in real cats. Inside Egyptian homes, small statues of Bastet were also common. Families placed them in quiet corners of the house, believing the goddess would watch over the household and keep it safe. Meanwhile, the real cats living among the people continued their quiet daily routines. They walked through courtyards, climbed onto rooftops warmed by the sun, and rested beside families as meals were prepared. Their calm presence blended naturally with the rhythms of Egyptian life. But now, these animals carried a deeper meaning. When people looked at a cat, they sometimes felt they were seeing a reflection of the goddess herself. The animal's watchful eyes, graceful movements, and protective instincts reminded them of Bastet's gentle power. Because of this belief, cats were treated with great respect. Harming a cat was considered extremely serious, and many laws were created to protect them. Even accidents involving cats could bring severe consequences because the animals were seen as sacred beings connected to the divine. Travelers from other lands sometimes wrote about how surprised they were by the way Egyptians treated cats. They described streets where cats wandered freely, completely unafraid of people. They saw families caring for cats with affection and kindness, sometimes even mourning deeply when a beloved cat passed away. In these moments, the bond between humans and cats had grown far beyond simple usefulness. The cat was no longer just a hunter guarding grain stores. It had become a symbol of harmony, protection, and sacred life within Egyptian culture. And so, beneath the golden sunlight of the Nile Valley, cats moved quietly through temples, homes, and city streets, carrying with them a connection to one of the most beloved goddesses of the ancient world. Yet the story of cats in Egypt still holds many peaceful scenes. Because while temples honored the goddess Bastet, everyday life in Egyptian homes also revealed how deeply cats were woven into the daily rhythm of the people. In ancient Egypt, daily life moved at a gentle rhythm shaped by the rising and setting of the sun. The warmth of the desert climate encouraged people to spend time outdoors, and many homes were built around open courtyards where families gathered, worked, and rested. Within these peaceful spaces, cats often became quiet members of the household. Unlike animals kept for heavy work, cats moved freely through Egyptian homes. They slipped between rooms, climbed onto low walls, and rested in warm patches of sunlight that fell across stone floors. A cat might curl up beside a basket of grain, watching patiently for the smallest movement. Another might sit near the doorway, observing the busy street outside. To the people living in these homes, such scenes became part of everyday life. Many families allowed cats to share their living space, not only because the animals hunted mice, but also because their presence felt comforting. A resting cat brought a sense of calm to the home. In paintings found inside ancient tombs, artists often included small images of cats sitting beneath chairs or beside their owners. These artworks quietly show how familiar cats had become in Egyptian domestic life. Some cats even wore simple collars made from leather or woven fibers. These collars sometimes held small decorations or protective charms. The details suggests that people cared for their cats with attention and affection. Elsewhere in the city streets, cats continued their graceful wandering. Ancient Egyptian cities were busy places filled with merchants, craftsmen, farmers, and travelers. Market stalls displayed vegetables, pottery, woven cloth, and baskets of grain. The air was filled with voices, footsteps, and the distant sounds of the river. Yet among this activity, cats moved with quiet confidence. They wandered through narrow alleyways, rested beneath shaded stalls, and sometimes watched birds circling high above the rooftops. People rarely chased them away. Instead, cats were treated almost like peaceful neighbors who belonged wherever they chose to sit. Children, in particular, were often curious about these animals. Young boys and girls may have followed cats gently through courtyards or offered them bits of food. Over time, certain cats likely formed closer bonds with particular families, returning to the same homes again and again. But even when cats lived closely with humans, they still kept their natural independence. A cat might spend part of the day resting quietly inside a home, then slip away at dusk to explore the nearby streets. During the cool hours of evening, when the heat of the day softened, many cats began their silent patrols. They climbed walls, crossed rooftops, and listened carefully for the small sounds of mice moving through storage areas. This nightly activity helped protect food supplies throughout the city. Because of this, cats became especially valued in areas where grain was stored. Large storage houses, temple granaries, and private food stores often welcomed the presence of these skilled hunters. Some historians believe that the reputation of cats as protectors of food helped strengthen the respect people already felt toward them. After all, the success of Egyptian society depended greatly on stable harvests and secure grain supplies. A creature that helped guard this precious food was naturally appreciated. Yet beyond their usefulness, cats seemed to bring something softer into Egyptian homes. Their quiet breathing, slow blinking eyes, and gentle movements created small moments of peace within busy households. In the cool evenings, as families gathered to eat or talk, a cat might stretch comfortably beside them, perfectly content to share the quiet warmth of the home. These simple scenes repeated themselves across towns and villages throughout Egypt, and while the temples honored Bastet and celebrated the sacred nature of cats, everyday people experienced something even more personal. They lived alongside these animals, sharing space, comfort, and a silent understanding that had slowly grown over many generations. But the respect Egyptians felt for cats extended even further, because beyond the homes and streets, powerful laws existed to ensure that cats would always remain protected within Egyptian society. As cats became more loved and respected in ancient Egypt, the care given to them slowly grew into something even stronger. The admiration people felt for these quiet animals was not only a personal feeling inside homes, it also became part of the rules that guided the entire society. In many ancient cultures, animals were valued for practical reasons, but in Egypt, cats were treated with an unusual level of protection. Because they were connected to the goddess Bastet, harming a cat was considered a serious offense. Egyptians believed that these animals carried a sacred presence. To hurt one was not simply an act against an animal, but an act that disturbed the balance between humans and the divine world. Ancient writers from other lands described how strongly Egyptians protected their cats. Some travelers were surprised to see how carefully people behaved around them. If a cat walked across a busy street, people often stepped aside to allow it to pass. The animal was not chased or disturbed. Instead, it was treated with patience and respect. Even the government of Egypt helped enforce these protections. Historical records suggest that laws existed to punish anyone who intentionally harmed a cat. In some accounts, the penalties were extremely severe. These rules showed just how deeply the animal was valued. Egyptian society was built on the idea that harmony must be preserved. Every part of the world, from the flow of the Nile River to the movement of the stars, was believed to follow a natural order. Cats, in their quiet way, were seen as part of that balance. They protected food supplies, guarded homes from pests, and symbolized the protective spirit of Bastet. Allowing harm to come to them would break the harmony that Egyptians worked so carefully to maintain. There are also stories that reveal how strongly people cared for cats during emergencies. When fires broke out in ancient towns, some reports say that families rushed to save their cats before rescuing their own belongings. This may sound surprising to us today, but it shows how deeply these animals were woven into daily life. Losing a beloved cat could bring genuine sadness. Some Egyptian families even showed signs of mourning when their cat passed away. Historical descriptions mention people shaving their eyebrows as a sign of grief. This quiet ritual reflected the emotional bond between humans and their feline companions. Elsewhere in Egyptian society, cats were so valued that they were sometimes protected even when traveling beyond the country's borders. Egypt had strong trade connections with nearby regions across the Mediterranean Sea and the Middle East. Traders carried goods such as grain, linen, gold, and papyrus to distant lands. But the Egyptians were cautious about allowing cats to leave the country. Some historians believe that officials tried to prevent traders from taking cats abroad. Because cats were considered sacred and useful, the Egyptians may have wanted to keep them within their own lands. Yet history often finds its own path. Despite these efforts, cats eventually began appearing in other regions beyond Egypt. Sailors and travelers sometimes brought them along on ships, where they helped control rodents during long sea journeys. From these ships, cats slowly stepped onto new shores. But within Egypt itself, their position remained special. They were not simply tolerated or admired. They were protected by law, respected by the people, and honored through religion. In the quiet temples, in busy marketplaces, and in peaceful family homes, cats continued to live freely under this protective culture. And as their importance grew even deeper, another fascinating tradition began to appear in Egyptian society, a tradition that revealed just how sacred these animals had become. Because when some cats died, they were given a farewell that few animals in the ancient world ever received. In ancient Egypt, death was not seen as the end of existence. Instead, Egyptians believed that life continued in another world beyond the one we know. Because of this belief, they developed careful rituals to prepare both people and sacred animals for the journey after death. Many people today know about the famous mummies of Egyptian kings and queens. Their bodies were carefully preserved and placed inside decorated tombs so that their spirit could live on in the afterlife. But humans were not the only beings honored in this way. In certain cases, cats were also mummified. To the Egyptians, cats held a special spiritual importance. Their connection to the goddess Bastet gave them a sacred place within religious traditions. Because of this, the death of a cat could be treated with great care and ceremony. Archaeologists have discovered large burial sites where thousands of cat mummies were placed together. These burial grounds were often located near temples dedicated to Bastet. The process of mummifying a cat was done with attention and respect. The body would be carefully prepared and wrapped in strips of linen cloth, similar to the method used for humans. Some of these wrappings were arranged in beautiful patterns, forming delicate shapes across the small body of the animal. When seen today in museums, these woven patterns almost resemble intricate works of art. After the wrapping was completed, the mummified cat was often placed inside a small coffin or protective container. Some coffins were made from simple materials such as wood or clay. Others were more elaborate, shaped like a seated cat, and decorated with painted details. These objects were sometimes offered at temples as a sign of devotion to the goddess Bastet. Visitors who came to worship might bring a cat mummy as a gift to the temple. The offering symbolized respect for the goddess and gratitude for her protection. Over time, this tradition became very common. Large numbers of cat mummies have been discovered in ancient Egyptian burial grounds. Some burial chambers contained layers of carefully placed mummies stretching deep into the earth. To modern archaeologists, these discoveries reveal just how widespread the reverence for cats had become. But it is also important to understand the emotional side of this tradition. In many cases, families likely mummified their own beloved cats after they passed away. These animals had shared their homes, protected their food, and been part of daily life for many years. Preserving the body may have felt like a way to honor that relationship and ensure that the cat's spirit continued peacefully in the afterlife. Elsewhere in Egyptian temples, statues of cats and images of Bastet reminded visitors of the sacred bond between humans and these animals. Priests and caretakers maintained these temple spaces where offerings were made and prayers were spoken. The presence of cat mummies within these sacred areas showed that cats were not simply useful companions. They had become symbols of divine protection and spiritual connection. As centuries passed, the reputation of Egyptian cats grew beyond the borders of the Nile Valley. Travelers and traders from distant lands heard stories about the respect Egyptians showed toward these animals. Some visitors were amazed to see cats walking freely through temples and city streets, treated almost like honored citizens. And slowly, through trade routes and sea voyages, the influence of Egyptian culture began carrying cats beyond their homeland. Before long, these graceful hunters would begin appearing in other parts of the ancient world, traveling across oceans and continents alongside human explorers. For many centuries, ancient Egypt was one of the most powerful and influential civilizations in the world. Its cities were filled with skilled craftsmen, scholars, farmers, and merchants. Along the Nile River, large boats carried goods between towns, while other ships traveled across the Mediterranean Sea to distant lands. These trade routes connected Egypt with many other cultures. Merchants exchanged grain, papyrus, linen cloth, glass, gold, and beautifully carved objects. Ships moved slowly across the water, guided by wind and careful navigation, carrying cargo from one harbor to another. And somewhere along these journeys, cats began traveling as well. At first, cats likely boarded ships simply because the vessels offered good hunting opportunities. Grain shipments often attracted mice and rats, which could damage valuable supplies during long voyages. Sailors quickly discovered that cats were excellent companions for life at sea. A single cat could keep a ship's food stores much safer by quietly hunting the rodents that crept into cargo areas. Because of this, sailors often welcomed cats aboard their vessels. Once a ship left the Egyptian coast, its feline passenger sometimes arrived in places where cats had never been seen before. Harbors across the Mediterranean were busy meeting points for traders from many cultures. Greek merchants, Phoenician sailors, and travelers from distant islands gathered in these ports to exchange goods and stories. When ships arrived carrying cats, people in these regions noticed them with curiosity. The animals were graceful, quiet, and very skilled hunters. Farmers and merchants quickly realized that these cats could help protect their own food supplies from rodents. In this way, cats slowly began spreading beyond Egypt. Some were carried intentionally by sailors who appreciated their usefulness. Others simply followed opportunities wherever food and shelter could be found. Once they arrived in new lands, cats adapted easily. Their natural independence helped them survive in many different environments. They could live in warm coastal cities, quiet countryside farms, or busy marketplaces filled with people. Unlike many animals that required careful care from humans, cats were capable of finding food and shelter on their own if necessary. This flexibility allowed them to settle successfully in many regions. Historians believe that trade networks played a major role in this slow expansion. The Mediterranean Sea acted almost like a great highway connecting civilizations. Phoenician traders, who were famous sailors of the ancient world, may have helped carry cats to islands and coastal cities far from Egypt. Their ships traveled widely, establishing trade connections across large parts of the ancient world. Wherever these ships stopped, cats sometimes stepped onto new shores. In some places, the animals remained close to harbors and docks where food was plentiful. Fish scraps, grain shipments, and warehouse stores attracted both rodents and the cats that hunted them. Elsewhere, farmers welcomed cats into their barns and storage houses, recognizing their value as protectors of food. Over time, people in these regions began forming their own relationships with cats, just as Egyptians had done before them. But the way cats were viewed in other cultures could be quite different. In Egypt, cats had been connected to religion and sacred traditions. In other parts of the ancient world, they were admired more for their practical skills. Yet, even without the same spiritual meaning, many people found themselves appreciating the quiet presence of these animals. Cats brought balance to busy places, they reduced pests, moved gracefully through human spaces, and seemed comfortable living beside people without needing constant attention. Their calm independence made them easy companions in both cities and villages. And so, slowly and quietly, cats continued their journey across the ancient world. From the riverbanks of Egypt to distant coastal ports, from merchant ships to foreign marketplaces, these small hunters were beginning to shape their place in human history far beyond their original homeland. But as cats arrived in these new regions, they soon found an especially natural home in one particular setting: the busy harbors and seaports of the ancient Mediterranean. Across the ancient Mediterranean world, the sea was a place of movement and connection. Ships traveled slowly between distant shores, carrying merchants, explorers, and valuable goods. Ports along the coastline became lively meeting places where different cultures shared ideas, stories, and trade. In these busy harbors, cats soon found a natural place to live. Ships arriving from Egypt, Phoenicia, and other trading regions often carried cats aboard. At sea, these animals had already proven themselves useful by protecting food supplies from mice and rats hiding among cargo. When the ships docked, the cats sometimes stepped onto the wooden piers and stone walkways of the harbor towns. At first, they may have explored cautiously, slipping quietly between stacked crates, ropes, and fishing nets. The smell of fish and stored grain drifted through the air, and small rodents moved through the busy storage areas. For a skilled hunter like a cat, a port city offered endless opportunity. Warehouses were filled with grain, dried fruits, and other goods that attracted pests. Fishing docks left behind scraps that small animals quickly gathered to eat. Wherever mice appeared, cats soon followed. Sailors quickly noticed how helpful these animals were in port cities. Some cats remained on ships, traveling with crews from one harbor to another. Others chose to stay behind, settling near the docks where food was easy to find. In time, cats became familiar sights in many Mediterranean ports. They wandered across sun-warmed stone streets, rested in quiet corners between buildings, and sometimes curled up beside fishermen repairing their nets. To the people working in these harbors, the cats became part of daily life. Fishermen might toss small fish scraps toward them. Warehouse workers allowed them to roam freely through storage areas. Knowing the cats helped keep rodents away from valuable goods. Unlike the sacred status cats held in Egypt, people in many Mediterranean regions viewed them in a simpler way. They respected cats mainly for their usefulness, yet admiration still grew naturally. Watching a cat move through a crowded port was a quiet reminder of their remarkable balance and grace. Even among noisy markets and heavy cargo carts, cats seemed calm and perfectly in control of their surroundings. Their soft footsteps allowed them to navigate narrow beams, ropes, and wooden rails with ease. Sailors often developed strong attachments to the cats traveling with them. Life at sea could be lonely and unpredictable. Long voyages meant weeks away from home, facing storms and uncertain conditions. A small animal, moving peacefully around the ship, sometimes brought comfort to the crew. Cats required little care, yet their quiet companionship could lift the mood during long nights on the water. Over time, certain sailors even believed that cats brought good luck to their ships. A calm cat resting near the deck during a journey was seen as a good sign. If the animal appeared relaxed, some sailors believed the weather would remain peaceful. These small beliefs slowly became part of maritime tradition. Elsewhere in the harbor towns, cats continued their silent patrols. At night, when the markets closed and the sound of trade faded into quiet darkness, cats emerged to hunt. They slipped through alleyways and storage houses, their glowing eyes catching faint reflections from lanterns and moonlight. Their work helped protect food supplies throughout the port. Because these ports connected so many different regions, the cats living there slowly spread even farther. A young cat born near one harbor might one day follow a sailor onto a ship, traveling to another distant city. In this way, generation after generation, cats continued expanding their presence across the ancient world. Without maps or plans, these animals were quietly joining human trade networks, and as they stepped onto new shores across Europe, their journey through history was only beginning. As trade and travel continued across the Mediterranean, cats slowly found themselves in new lands, far from their original homes in Egypt. Ships carrying grain, wine, and other goods introduced cats to coastal towns and villages throughout Europe. In each new place, these small hunters quietly made themselves at home. The first European communities to encounter cats were often port towns where traders arrived from the south. Here, cats discovered a landscape filled with food opportunities, grain stored in warehouses, rodents hiding in barns, and small birds in the surrounding fields created a plentiful environment. Their hunting skills proved immediately useful, earning them favor among farmers and townspeople. Unlike many domesticated animals, cats required little direct care. They were independent, curious, and cautious. They moved gracefully through human settlements, patrolling markets, climbing rooftops, and exploring quiet alleyways. Yet their presence was both calming and beneficial. Villagers began to appreciate how cats helped protect essential food supplies while maintaining their natural freedom. In some regions, cats began appearing in local folklore and early stories. People noticed their mysterious eyes, silent movements, and sudden bursts of energy during hunting. Tales arose describing cats as clever, watchful, and sometimes even magical. While these stories varied from place to place, the admiration for cats' unique qualities spread across communities. As cats continued to settle in villages and towns, they adapted to local climates and environments. Coastal areas provided abundant fish and small animals, while rural farmlands offered grain stores, barns, and open spaces. Their flexibility allowed them to thrive in forests, meadows, and even snowy regions. Wherever humans lived, cats found ways to survive, often forming a quiet partnership with people without any formal domestication. During this time, cats also became part of the urban landscape. Medieval European streets, though much busier and noisier than their ancient Egyptian counterparts, were still filled with open spaces and marketplaces. Cats roamed these streets freely, sitting atop walls or resting in sunny squares. Merchants appreciated them as natural protectors of stored goods, while children and villagers watched them with curiosity and affection. Cats' presence slowly changed human routines as well. Farmers learned to leave small food scraps in barns or near grain stores, encouraging cats to remain close. Townspeople, recognizing their usefulness, tolerated and even welcomed cats roaming the streets. Over generations, cats became familiar companions in daily life, blending seamlessly with human activities while maintaining their independent nature. Interestingly, cats also influenced cultural and spiritual ideas in some areas. Though Europe did not initially grant them the same sacred status as Egypt, cats were sometimes associated with mysterious qualities, cleverness, and alertness. Their ability to appear and disappear quietly gave them an almost magical reputation, especially in stories passed from one generation to the next. By quietly traveling with humans, settling in towns, and navigating rural lands, cats began shaping their place in European society. Their spread was not the result of careful planning or domestication programs. It was a natural outcome of their curiosity, adaptability, and usefulness. They were self-directed explorers, moving steadily through the human world while influencing it in subtle ways. And so, across the landscape of Europe, Cats gradually became familiar sights in homes, markets, farms, and harbors. They were admired for their grace, valued for their hunting skills, and quietly accepted as companions, even if they remained independent and elusive. From these early European towns, cats would continue their journey into more structured societies, eventually entering the lives of the Greeks, Romans, and other civilizations who would recognize their remarkable presence in new ways. In ancient Greece, cities rose among hills and coastlines, filled with whitewashed buildings, marble temples, and bustling marketplaces. People here were curious about the world around them. They studied nature, philosophy, and art, and slowly, cats had begun to make their presence known in these towns and villages. Cats were not native to Greece, but they arrived quietly through trade and travel. Ships bringing grain, wine, and other goods often carried cats aboard. Once on land, the animals explored cities, countryside farms, and coastal settlements, where they could find food and shelter while remaining largely independent. The Greeks observed cats closely, noting both their elegance and cleverness. Cats moved with grace, climbing walls, resting on rooftops, and perching in quiet courtyards. Their hunting skills were admired, as they kept mice and other small pests away from food stores and grain silos. This practical usefulness earned them the respect of townspeople and farmers alike. Unlike the sacred reverence seen in Egypt, Greek culture appreciated cats more for their traits and behavior. Philosophers and naturalists sometimes described their intelligence, agility, and keen senses. They were seen as clever creatures, able to survive in diverse environments and adapt to human spaces without losing their independence. Cats also appeared occasionally in Greek art. Pottery and decorative objects sometimes depicted small felines in domestic or natural scenes. Though less central than Egyptian depictions, these images show that Greeks noticed the animal's charm and beauty. Their poised, alert bodies captured the attention of artists and observers alike. In Greek households, cats quietly integrated into family life. They roamed courtyards and kitchens, curled up in sunlit areas, and sometimes became companions to children and adults. Their quiet presence added a subtle calm to homes, a gentle rhythm that complemented the activity of daily life. Even in the streets of busy Greek cities, cats were present. They moved carefully among market stalls, stepped lightly through the alleys, and occasionally found refuge atop stone walls or under shaded porticos. Residents learned to coexist with these small hunters, valuing both their practical usefulness and their serene, independent demeanor. Some stories suggest that cats in Greece became associated with mystery and cleverness. Their ability to appear and vanish without notice inspired quiet admiration. In this way, cats slowly became part of cultural imagination, even if they were not formally worshipped like in Egypt. Furthermore, the Greek appreciation for observation and nature meant that cats were studied, not just used. Their behavior offered insights into hunting instincts, agility, and subtle social interactions. People admired how cats could live alongside humans while remaining entirely their own, a delicate balance between familiarity and independence. Through these quiet interactions, cats established themselves across Greek towns, homes, and farmlands. Their presence bridged the natural and human worlds, bringing practical benefit and gentle companionship. They continued the slow journey of becoming familiar partners to humans, while retaining the mystery that made them so captivating. Soon, cats would travel further still, entering the vast expanse of the Roman Empire, where their reputation and reach would grow even wider, touching every corner of an empire connected by roads, rivers, and trade. The Roman Empire stretched across a vast territory, from the sun-baked coasts of North Africa to the rolling hills of Europe and the fertile valleys of the Near East. Cities rose in grand design, with wide streets, bustling marketplaces, and towering buildings made from stone and marble. Amid this sprawling civilization, cats quietly continued their journey alongside humans. Cats were not native to Rome, but they had traveled steadily from Egypt and the Mediterranean ports. Traders, merchants, and travelers often brought them along, whether to protect food supplies on ships or as curiosities admired for their grace and hunting skills. Once on Roman soil, cats explored towns, villages, and country estates, finding places where humans had left room for them to live and roam freely. Romans admired the usefulness of cats, especially in cities filled with stored grain, food markets, and dense populations of rodents. A cat patrolling a storeroom or a granary could save a family from weeks of lost harvest. Their hunting skills made them valuable without requiring formal training or supervision, allowing them to integrate into everyday life with remarkable ease. In Roman homes, cats were often companions rather than sacred beings. They shared living spaces with families, resting in courtyards or on tiled floors, sometimes curling beside children as they played. While their status was not as spiritual as in Egypt, many Romans recognized their intelligence, elegance, and quiet presence. A calm cat in the household could offer comfort as well as protection. Cats were also present in public spaces. Markets, docks, and workshops became familiar territories for these agile animals. Their soft steps allowed them to move undisturbed through crowded streets and over stone walls, often attracting admiration from passers-by. Merchants tolerated and even encouraged them, knowing that their hunting skills protected goods without disturbing trade or daily activity. Some Romans began noticing not only the practical benefits of cats, but also their beauty and demeanor. Artists sometimes depicted cats in mosaics and frescoes, often resting gracefully or observing their surroundings. Their poised, alert bodies became a quiet symbol of natural elegance and patience, admired in a world filled with the movement and bustle of city life. Cats also continued traveling with humans along Roman roads, ships, and caravans. As the empire expanded, its network of trade routes allowed cats to move into regions far from the Mediterranean, from forests and hills in Gaul to cities along the Danube. Their presence followed the rhythm of human civilization, quietly adapting to new environments while maintaining their natural independence. The Romans, like other cultures, valued the balance cats brought between usefulness and companionship. They observed their cleverness, patience, and adaptability, recognizing qualities that humans found both practical and pleasing. Cats became part of a subtle, everyday connection that spread across the empire, linking the lives of farmers, merchants, and urban residents alike. Through the empire, cats became more than hunters. They became familiar figures in human communities. Their soft paws and alert eyes quietly witnessed the grandeur of Roman architecture, the hum of markets, and the intimacy of family homes. Their presence was both practical and comforting, reminding humans that even in a vast, bustling civilization, small creatures could offer a touch of calm and quiet order. As they moved through Roman cities and farmlands, cats continued to shape their place in human life. They would soon travel even further along the Silk Road, reaching lands in the east where their quiet presence would become a welcome companion in temples, homes, and gardens for centuries to come. As the Roman Empire flourished in the west, trade routes stretched far beyond Europe, weaving a vast network that connected many lands. Among these paths, the Silk Road became one of the most famous. It was not a single road, but a collection of trails that carried traders, travelers, and goods across deserts, mountains, and river valleys. Along these routes, cats continued their quiet journey, moving closer to the civilizations of the East. Ships and caravans traveling between the Mediterranean and Asia often carried grain, spices, and textiles. Where food traveled, so did mice and rats, and where rodents appeared, cats followed. Traders began noticing that these small hunters were useful companions on long journeys. A cat aboard a caravan could quietly control pests in crates of grain, stored rice, or silk bales, helping to protect valuable cargo over long distances. The presence of cats on the Silk Road introduced them to many new environments. In desert oases, they moved among palm trees and small settlements, hunting insects and rodents. In mountain passes, they leapt nimbly across rocks and narrow ledges, adapting quickly to unfamiliar terrain. Their independence allowed them to thrive in these faraway lands, even where humans could not always care for them directly. Cats also entered towns and cities along the trade routes. Markets were lively and crowded, filled with merchants from different cultures. Cats quietly roamed these spaces, keeping storage areas free from pests, while remaining largely unnoticed by the busy crowds. Their calm presence was appreciated by those who understood their usefulness, even if they were still seen as mysterious or slightly magical animals in some cultures. In certain regions of Central Asia, cats began blending into temple life, just as they had been associated with Bastet in Egypt. Local traditions sometimes connected cats with protection, calm, and good fortune. Their alert eyes and graceful movements seemed to offer a subtle form of watchfulness, and people began treating them with respect, allowing them to live near homes, shrines, and granaries. Cats traveling along these routes were more than just companions. They were silent witnesses to human history. They observed traders counting coins, craftsmen weaving silk, and travelers resting beside flickering fires under the desert stars. Their movements were quiet, their eyes sharp, yet they became a natural part of the rhythm of life along the Silk Road. Interestingly, some travelers began to recognize cats as symbols of cleverness and adaptability. Their ability to survive in new lands and navigate unfamiliar spaces made them a model of resilience. While humans often marveled at distant landscapes, the cats quietly moved alongside them, bridging worlds without ever needing maps or guidance. Over time, cats continued to spread eastward into lands like China, India, and beyond. Their presence in these regions was both practical and symbolic. In temples, homes, and marketplaces, cats became familiar companions. appreciated for hunting skills and admired for their quiet independence. Through deserts, mountains, and bustling trade centers, cats quietly accompanied humans on one of the longest and most remarkable journeys in history. Their path along the Silk Road helped introduce them to countless cultures, each adding a small chapter to the story of humans and cats living side by side. As cats traveled farther east along trade routes like the Silk Road, they began to appear in the lands of ancient China. This civilization was vast and rich, with mountains, rivers, and fertile plains supporting large cities and bustling villages. People here were skilled in farming, crafts, and trade, and their homes and temples slowly welcomed the quiet presence of cats. In China, cats were appreciated first and foremost for their hunting abilities. Farmers stored rice, wheat, and other grains in barns and silos, and rodents were a constant problem. A single cat could make a noticeable difference, quietly reducing the numbers of pests while moving with silent precision through fields and storage areas. This practical value earned them respect among villagers and traders. Beyond their usefulness, cats began to appear in Chinese cultural life. Artists noticed their elegant forms, their soft movements, and their calm, observing eyes. Some cats were painted on scrolls or depicted in decorative objects, often shown resting peacefully or watching over a household. Their quiet grace inspired admiration and became a gentle symbol of alertness, independence, and poise. Temples in China sometimes welcomed cats as well. Like in Egypt, people noticed that cats seemed naturally protective, not only of food, but of spaces. They were allowed to wander quietly in temple courtyards, keeping rodents away from stored offerings and quietly blending into sacred spaces. While they were not worshipped as divine beings, their presence was respected, and they became a small but meaningful part of spiritual life. Cats also adapted well to city life. Ancient Chinese towns were full of narrow streets, crowded marketplaces, and homes built close together. Cats navigated these areas with ease, slipping through alleyways, resting in sunny spots, and quietly observing the world around them. Residents often tolerated them, knowing that their hunting skills helped maintain balance in busy communities. Over time, certain regions in China began associating cats with good luck and protection. Their watchful eyes and graceful movements suggested a subtle alertness, and in some households, cats were seen as guardians of the home. Their calm presence added quiet comfort to daily life, helping people feel secure in their surroundings. Cats traveling through China continued to move along trade routes, reaching distant provinces and even connecting with other cultures through commerce. Their adaptability allowed them to survive in diverse climates, from river valleys to mountainous regions, while still maintaining their natural independence. In this way, cats quietly became part of the everyday rhythm of ancient Chinese life. Farmers, merchants, and temple caretakers all came to value them, whether for their practical skills or for the calm companionship they provided. Their journey eastward reflected a remarkable story of adaptability, resilience, and the slow building of trust between humans and cats across cultures. And as cats settled into these eastern lands, they would eventually find a particularly special role in the households and gardens of Chinese families, where beauty, calm, and companionship intertwined. From China, cats gradually made their way to the islands of Japan, carried by travelers, traders, and fishermen across the sea. Japan's landscape was filled with mountains, rivers, and coastal villages, creating a variety of environments where cats could adapt and thrive. Their arrival marked the beginning of a subtle but enduring presence in Japanese homes, temples, and cultural life. In early Japanese villages, cats were valued for the same practical reason that had brought them to other lands. They controlled pests. Rice, a staple of Japanese agriculture, was stored in elevated granaries, and rodents often sought easy access to these valuable stores. Cats moved quietly among these granaries, hunting mice with patience and precision, helping farmers protect their food. But beyond practicality, Japanese people also noticed the quiet grace of cats. Their sleek movements, watchful eyes, and gentle behaviors fit naturally into the calm rhythms of Japanese daily life. In small homes and gardens, cats became companions, observing their surroundings, moving silently through courtyards, and resting in sunlit corners. Their presence was peaceful and unobtrusive, blending seamlessly with the environment. Cats gradually became part of Japanese spiritual and artistic life as well. In Buddhist temples, cats were sometimes allowed to roam, quietly hunting rodents while maintaining a calm presence in sacred spaces. In art, cats appeared in paintings, prints, and scrolls, often shown with elegance and a sense of attentive observation. They symbolized quiet patience, independence, and balance, qualities admired in both animals and humans. Legends and folklore in Japan began to feature cats as clever, protective, and sometimes magical creatures. Stories told of cats bringing good fortune to households, alerting people to danger, or quietly watching over their human companions. These tales reflected a growing appreciation for the mysterious qualities of cats, emphasizing their intelligence, awareness, and calm influence in everyday life. Cats also adapted remarkably well to the seasonal changes of Japan. They learned to navigate snowy winters, warm summers, and rainy seasons, finding shelter in homes, temples, and small barns. Their flexibility and independence made them easy companions, requiring little care while offering subtle comfort and protection in return. In urban areas, cats roamed freely through narrow streets, marketplaces, and courtyards. They became a familiar sight, moving silently around people and goods, quietly maintaining balance in bustling communities. Residents tolerated and appreciated them, recognizing their role in reducing pests and adding quiet companionship to everyday life. Over generations, cats became increasingly integrated into Japanese households and culture. They were valued for their hunting skills, admired for their beauty, and embraced for the gentle calm they brought to human spaces. Their presence reflected the quiet harmony that Japanese culture often sought in daily life, blending usefulness, elegance, and serenity. As cats settled into homes, gardens, and temples across Japan, they became enduring symbols of balance and companionship, continuing a journey that had begun thousands of years earlier along the Nile River in Egypt. Their quiet influence in human life was growing steadily, one home, one village, and one temple at a time. While cats traveled eastward through China and Japan, They were also making their way into the Indian subcontinent, a land of rivers, forests, and bustling cities. India's ancient civilizations had long histories of trade, agriculture, and cultural exchange, and cats quietly became part of this world as both helpers and companions. In India, cats were valued primarily for their ability to control pests. Farmers stored rice, wheat, and spices in granaries, and small rodents often sought these supplies. Cats moved silently through fields and homes, hunting with precision and keeping the stores safe. Their natural independence made them perfect companions for families who needed practical solutions without constant care. Cats also found their place in Indian homes and temples. Courtyards, verandas, and gardens became spaces where cats could rest in the sun, observe their surroundings, and move freely. Their quiet presence added a sense of calm to households, complementing the daily rhythms of cooking, prayer, and family life. Art and literature began reflecting the presence of cats as well. In some ancient manuscripts and paintings, small felines were depicted alongside humans, often in domestic or serene natural scenes. Their attentive eyes and graceful movements inspired admiration, symbolizing calm, patience, and alertness. Temples, especially those with stored offerings of grain or fruit, often welcomed cats. They quietly hunted pests while maintaining a respectful distance from sacred spaces. Some priests noticed that the cat's calm and watchful presence added a subtle sense of protection and order, aligning with spiritual practices that valued harmony between humans, nature, and the divine. Over time, cats became familiar companions to travelers, traders, and townspeople alike. Their independence allowed them to move freely through markets, along riverbanks, and across village streets. People tolerated and even encouraged them, knowing that they brought both practical benefit and quiet comfort. Legends and folklore in India sometimes portrayed cats as clever and perceptive animals. They were admired for their alertness and ability to observe the world without drawing attention to themselves. In many households, a cat's presence quietly symbolized protection, vigilance, and subtle companionship. Cats also adapted well to India's varied climates, from humid coastal regions to cooler mountain valleys. Their resilience allowed them to thrive in diverse environments, integrating naturally into human communities without demanding extensive care. Through centuries of travel, trade, and quiet observation, cats had now reached a wide expanse of Asia, from the temples of Egypt to the bustling markets of India. Their journey had been long, filled with both practical and cultural significance. Across lands and civilizations, they had begun to establish themselves as both guardians and companions, quietly weaving into human life wherever they went. As cats moved through India, their journey continued further east, eventually reaching regions where they would influence not only homes and temples, but also local legends and cultural imagination in enduring ways. From India, cats slowly spread to the islands and coastal regions of Southeast Asia, carried by traders, fishermen, and travelers who moved across the Bay of Bengal and along the coasts of present-day Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. These tropical lands, filled with rivers, forests, and bustling ports, became new homes for the adaptable and quiet animals. In these regions, cats were first appreciated for their hunting skills. Markets and storage areas often contained rice, spices, and other goods that attracted rodents. Cats moved silently among these spaces, controlling pests with patience and skill. Their presence was immediately practical and deeply appreciated by both merchants and farmers. Cats also adapted easily to village life. They roamed wooden homes, sunlit courtyards, and shaded gardens, observing daily activities with quiet curiosity. Children often watched them with fascination, noticing their graceful leaps and alert eyes. Adults respected their usefulness and independence, allowing them to move freely while still considering them companions. Temples and shrines in Southeast Asia sometimes welcomed cats as well. In quiet courtyards or under shaded verandas, cats could be seen resting, their calm presence blending naturally into spaces of worship. Though not worshipped as sacred animals in the same way as in Egypt, cats were often seen as symbols of protection and balance, silently guarding food stores and temple grounds. The tropical climate allowed cats to thrive. They adapted to rainy seasons, humid forests, and coastal breezes, finding shelter in homes, barns, and market areas. Their resilience made them ideal companions for communities that were often on the move or engaged in trade and travel. Sailors and traders traveling between islands played a crucial role in this spread. Cats on ships continued to control pests during long journeys, moving quietly among cargo and deck supplies. Some cats remained on ships, traveling across seas to new islands where they established themselves in villages and port towns. Stories and folklore gradually began reflecting the presence of cats in local culture. People admired their cleverness, independence, and quiet watchfulness. In some communities, cats were considered lucky animals, symbols of alertness and guardianship, quietly offering protection and comfort to households. Over time, cats became familiar figures across Southeast Asian communities. From bustling port towns to quiet village homes, they quietly integrated into human life, maintaining their independence while providing practical benefits. Their journey from Egypt through Asia and into these tropical lands had now stretched across continents, carrying centuries of human and feline interaction. In these tropical regions, cats continued to travel with humans, adapt to new environments, and quietly influence cultural ideas. Their journey across the ancient world was far from over, and soon they would move into even more distant lands, where their presence would be both celebrated and cherished. Alongside their journey through Asia, cats also maintained a strong presence in the Middle East, a region filled with deserts, rivers, and bustling trade cities. Here, they became familiar companions in both homes and marketplaces, quietly moving through the daily life of people for whom survival often required vigilance and careful planning. In cities such as Babylon, Ur, and later Baghdad, cats were valued primarily for their ability to control rodents. Grain, dates, and other stored foods were essential for survival, and even small infestations could be disastrous. Cats moved silently through homes, warehouses, and city streets, hunting with patience and precision, often unnoticed, but always effective. Cats in the Middle East were also welcomed in domestic life. They often rested in sunlit courtyards, watched over children playing, or accompanied adults as they went about daily chores. Their quiet presence added calm and a sense of continuity, blending naturally into households while offering a subtle form of protection. In addition to homes, cats were common in marketplaces. These bustling areas were filled with merchants, goods, and the constant movement of people. Cats navigated narrow alleyways and crowded stalls with remarkable ease, hunting pests and remaining largely independent. Their presence helped maintain order quietly, reducing the damage caused by rodents and other small animals. Cats' behavior often inspired admiration and stories. Observers noted their alert eyes, graceful movements, and ability to appear and disappear silently. In some local traditions, cats became symbols of cleverness and vigilance, representing qualities that were both respected and quietly admired. Temples and shrines in the region sometimes allowed cats to roam freely. While not considered sacred in the Egyptian sense, cats were appreciated for their calm presence and practical usefulness. Their ability to maintain balance in human spaces made them welcome companions, and many households viewed their presence as a gentle form of guardianship. Over time, cats traveled across the Middle East with merchants, pilgrims, and nomadic families. Their adaptability allowed them to thrive in deserts, river valleys, and mountain villages alike. Wherever humans settled, cats quietly followed, integrating themselves into daily life while remaining independent and self-sufficient. The Middle East became an important crossroads in the history of cats, connecting Africa, Europe, and Asia. Through trade routes and human settlements, cats continued their slow expansion, carrying both their practical skills and the subtle cultural meanings they had acquired along the way. By moving through these lands, cats not only ensured their survival, but also quietly influenced the communities they lived in, blending utility, companionship, and a gentle presence that humans had come to respect across civilizations. As centuries passed, cats had traveled across continents, arriving once more in Europe, this time during the medieval period. Cities and towns had grown, castles rose atop hills, and villages spread across forests and fields. In these places, cats quietly resumed their role as companions, hunters, and observers of human life. In medieval Europe, grain and food storage were vital for survival, and rodents were a constant problem. Cats patrolled barns, kitchens, and marketplaces, hunting quietly and keeping supplies safe. Farmers and townspeople appreciated them not only for their skill, but also for the sense of calm and order they brought into busy, sometimes chaotic, daily life. Cats lived both in homes and in more public spaces. They wandered through cobblestone streets, rested on sunny rooftops, and observed the daily routines of villagers. Their independence allowed them to integrate naturally into human society without requiring strict care, making them ideal companions in towns filled with activity and noise. Interestingly, cats in medieval Europe were often linked to folklore and superstition. Their mysterious behavior, silent movements, and glowing eyes inspired stories of magic and mystery. While some cultures associated cats with luck and protection, others, influenced by fear and superstition, sometimes saw them as mystical. or even ominous. Yet, despite these beliefs, cats continued to thrive in towns, homes, and farms. In castles and manor houses, cats were quietly valued. Large estates often stored grain, wine, and preserved food that attracted pests, and cats moved stealthily through kitchens and storage areas. Lords, ladies, and servants alike came to recognize the calm and reliable presence of these small hunters, even when humans feared other creatures or unknown dangers. Cats maintained a quiet watch over their surroundings. Markets, ports, and trade routes also allowed cats to spread further. Ships traveling between northern and southern Europe carried cats as natural pest control, introducing them to new towns and villages. Their ability to adapt to different climates, from northern forests to Mediterranean coasts, made them resilient travelers and companions. Cats became part of daily life in a way that was subtle yet enduring. People noticed their intelligence, alertness, and grace, and often gave them small treats or scraps of food. In return, cats offered protection, companionship, and the quiet reassurance of a presence that observed without intrusion. Even in times of conflict, cats survived. During wars or sieges, they often remained in homes and towns, hunting quietly and maintaining some semblance of order in chaotic environments. Their resilience and independence allowed them to endure where other animals might struggle. By the end of the medieval period, cats were firmly established across Europe. They had become familiar companions, practical protectors, and subtle symbols of cleverness and calm. Their journey from ancient Egypt to the heart of European society was now complete in many ways, yet their story would continue, weaving further into human culture, art, and imagination in the centuries to come. In medieval Europe, monasteries and churches became quiet havens where cats found a unique role. These religious centers were often surrounded by gardens, orchards, and granaries, and they stored food for monks, clergy, and travelers. Cats moved quietly through these sacred spaces, hunting rodents and helping to protect essential supplies. Monks and nuns appreciated the presence of cats for their practical skills. Grain and dried foods were crucial for daily life and survival, and pests could easily destroy these stores. Cats patrolled storage areas silently, keeping the balance in these often quiet sanctuaries without requiring much care in return. Beyond their usefulness, cats were valued for their calm presence. In cloisters, gardens, and courtyards, they moved gracefully among the stone pathways, resting in sunny spots or quietly observing the gentle rhythms of monastic life. Their soft footsteps and alert eyes complemented the serene atmosphere, offering companionship without intrusion. In some cases, cats became part of monastery stories and traditions. Monks noticed how attentive and intelligent cats could be, and their quiet behavior inspired admiration. Tales circulated about cats guarding temples, predicting small events, or simply providing comfort to those who spent long hours in prayer and study. Art and manuscripts occasionally depicted cats in these religious spaces. They appeared in margins of illuminated texts, quietly observing or resting, and sometimes symbolized vigilance, independence, and watchfulness. Although not worshipped, cats were quietly respected and welcomed within sacred spaces. Temples and churches often stored large quantities of grain, wine, and herbs for both the local community and traveling pilgrims. Cats became essential partners in protecting these supplies. Their natural hunting instincts helped reduce the risk of spoilage or loss, allowing the human caretakers to focus on spiritual and communal duties. Even when monasteries were quiet, isolated from towns and markets, cats adapted perfectly. They found shelter among stone walls, in gardens, or beneath wooden beams. Their independence allowed them to thrive in the calm, controlled environment of monastic life, creating a subtle companionship that blended seamlessly with daily routines. Over time, the presence of cats in monasteries and churches helped solidify their place in European culture. They became associated with vigilance, calm, and quiet intelligence, qualities admired by both clergy and lay people. Their integration into religious life was a testament to the way cats could adapt to human spaces while maintaining their own independence. In these sacred environments, cats quietly shaped human experience. They were practical protectors, subtle companions, and gentle observers, moving gracefully through the rhythm of monastic life. Their presence highlighted the quiet bond between humans and animals, a connection that had traveled centuries and continents to reach this peaceful space. As Europe's cities and ports expanded, cats found a renewed purpose on ships and in maritime trade. Ships traveling along rivers, coasts, and open seas carried goods like grain, wine, cloth, and spices. Wherever food was stored, there were rodents, and wherever rodents appeared, cats quietly followed. Cats aboard ships were valued for their hunting skills. Rodents could damage supplies during long voyages, so sailors welcomed cats as natural protectors. A single cat could patrol a cargo hold, moving silently between barrels and crates, and quietly hunting the small creatures that threatened essential goods. Their presence ensured that food remained safe, and their calm behavior helped maintain order on vessels that could otherwise be chaotic. Sailors also appreciated the companionship cats provided. Life at sea was often long and difficult, filled with storms, isolation, and uncertainty. A cat moving gracefully across the deck or curling up near the captain offered comfort and a sense of calm. Unlike other animals, cats required little attention or training, yet their presence was both practical and soothing. Cats adapted well to ship life. They learned to navigate narrow decks, climb rigging, and rest safely in sheltered corners. Their keen senses allowed them to detect rats hiding in cargo, and their balance and agility kept them safe even in rough waters. Over time, certain cats became permanent members of ship crews, moving from port to port along trade routes. Ports and coastal towns also welcomed cats as natural guardians of goods. When ships docked, cats disembarked and explored the surrounding warehouses, markets, and streets. Merchants valued their presence for protecting stored food, and many townspeople allowed cats to roam freely, knowing they helped maintain balance quietly and effectively. Through centuries of maritime trade, cats traveled across Europe, the Mediterranean, and beyond. Their journeys were not planned, but guided by opportunity and necessity. A cat born in one port might one day find itself in a distant city, navigating new streets and marketplaces while maintaining its independence and calm presence. Sailors and traders sometimes began to notice more than just their practical value. Cats' elegance, alertness, and mysterious behaviors inspired admiration and even affection. They became symbols of vigilance and adaptability, moving seamlessly between human spaces while maintaining their own agency. By quietly traveling with maritime trade, cats became global companions. They connected cultures, protected food, and offered subtle comfort across seas and continents. Their journey alongside humans, from the markets of ancient Egypt to the busy ports of medieval Europe, continued to shape their place in history, an enduring presence woven into the rhythms of trade, travel, and human life. By the late Middle Ages, cats had become familiar figures in homes across Europe. Villages, towns, and even city apartments provided spaces where cats could live alongside humans while maintaining their natural independence. Their quiet presence had become a common, comforting part of daily life. In households, cats were valued first for their practical skills. Kitchens and pantries often contained grain, flour, and stored food, which attracted mice and rats. A cat, moving silently through the rooms or along window ledges, could reduce the risk of loss, protecting the household's vital supplies without requiring constant care or attention. But cats offered more than utility. Their calm, graceful movements, soft purring, and careful observation added a subtle sense of peace to homes. Families grew accustomed to their presence, cats resting in sunlit corners, observing children playing, or quietly watching the world outside the windows. Their behavior was calming, almost meditative, as if they existed in perfect balance with the household's rhythms. In some regions, cats began appearing in stories and folk tales within the home. People admired their intelligence and agility, and tales often highlighted their cleverness, independence, and mysterious nature. Children learned to respect and gently interact with cats, observing their behavior and noticing the silent, careful way they moved through spaces. Homes in towns and cities presented new opportunities for cats. Narrow streets, rooftops, and courtyards became part of their territory. They learned to navigate busy human environments with agility and caution. Residents, noticing the benefits cats brought, tolerated, and often welcomed their presence, even when the animals moved independently and unpredictably. Cats also became symbols of calm observation. Their quiet demeanor reminded people to move thoughtfully, watch carefully, and appreciate the small details in everyday life. In this way, cats contributed subtly to the domestic atmosphere, influencing human behavior and creating a sense of gentle companionship without words. Their adaptability was remarkable. Cats could live comfortably in a bustling city apartment, a rural farmhouse, or a castle kitchen. They survived through cold winters and hot summers, finding warmth in sunlit spots or shelter in hidden corners. Their resilience allowed them to remain a stable, comforting presence through generations of families. Even in homes where superstition existed, cats were often tolerated and sometimes revered. While some people associated them with mysterious or magical qualities, many recognized their usefulness and calm influence. Cats had become quietly essential members of households across Europe. By the end of the medieval period, cats had firmly secured their place in human homes. They were companions, guardians, and observers, moving gracefully through kitchens, courtyards, and streets. Their presence brought calm, practicality, and subtle beauty to the domestic world, a role they would continue to hold for centuries to come. As Europe entered the Renaissance, cities grew brighter with art, architecture, and ideas of exploration and human achievement. Within this vibrant cultural awakening, cats quietly continued their age-old role, moving gracefully through homes, markets, and gardens. Their presence was familiar, yet now they were observed in new ways that reflected the curiosity of the era. In Renaissance households, cats were often companions to both families and scholars. Kitchens and storerooms still required protection from rodents, but now cats also became part of spaces where people engaged in study, reading, and artistic creation. Their calm presence complemented these quieter moments, offering a sense of order and gentle companionship. Artists began noticing cats more frequently. Their sleek forms, alert eyes, and elegant movements were captured in paintings, tapestries, and illuminated manuscripts. Cats were often shown resting beside humans, perched on furniture, or quietly observing the world around them. These depictions reflected admiration not only for their beauty, but also for their independent yet attentive nature. Gardens became another space where cats thrived during the Renaissance. Wealthier households cultivated private gardens filled with flowers, herbs, and small ponds. Cats moved silently among these spaces, exploring quietly, resting in sunny corners, and hunting small pests without disturbing the cultivated beauty of the surroundings. Their presence added a layer of calm observation to the delicate rhythms of garden life. Cats also remained active in urban areas. Streets, marketplaces, and warehouses provided opportunities for hunting and exploration. Merchants, craftsmen, and townspeople valued cats for their practical skills, while their subtle, watchful presence brought a sense of quiet order to busy city life. In Renaissance towns, cats became a seamless part of everyday activity, often unnoticed, yet appreciated for their constant companionship. Some cats became subjects of stories, poems, and folklore. Writers and observers noted their intelligence, agility, and mysterious demeanor. They were admired as clever, attentive creatures, capable of understanding their environment and responding to it with remarkable skill. Cats became symbols of independence, balance, and observation, qualities that resonated with the Renaissance ideal of careful attention to the world. In homes, cats often shared spaces with children and pets. Their calm and observant nature made them ideal companions for learning and quiet play. They could move among people without intrusion, offering comfort and companionship while maintaining their natural freedom. Through cities, countryside estates, and gardens, cats continued their quiet journey alongside humans. Their practical skills, elegance, and calm presence ensured they remained valued even as society experienced rapid changes in art, science, and culture. The Renaissance was a time of exploration and discovery for humans, and for cats, it was a time to continue weaving quietly into the fabric of daily life. As the Renaissance inspired curiosity and the spirit of exploration, humans began traveling farther than ever before. Ships set sail across oceans, caravans journeyed across deserts, and traders moved along long land routes. Wherever humans went, cats often quietly accompanied them, bringing both practical help and gentle companionship. Cats on ships remained especially valuable. Long voyages meant stored food was essential, and rodents could destroy supplies if left unchecked. Cats patrolled cargo holds, moving silently between barrels and crates, keeping pests at bay, while their calm presence comforted sailors facing storms and long nights. Their natural agility allowed them to navigate narrow decks, ropes, and rigging, making them ideal companions for life at sea. Explorers also noticed cats' adaptability on land. In new settlements, forests, and towns, cats moved carefully, hunting local rodents and small animals while observing unfamiliar environments. Their independence meant they could survive in places where humans were still learning how to live, quietly finding their role in the rhythms of daily life. Cats were often carried intentionally by travelers, merchants, missionaries, and sailors recognized that these small hunters could protect grain, spices, and other valuable goods during long journeys. Over time, cats traveled across continents, reaching Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, sometimes joining humans on routes that linked distant civilizations. Along the way, cats became familiar in households of explorers and settlers. They were companions during moments of rest, sitting quietly beside humans after a day of travel or work. Their calm demeanor provided comfort, while their hunting skills ensured that food supplies remained safe. The combination of usefulness and companionship made cats indispensable to many travelers. Stories and observations of cats spread along with human exploration. People admired their intelligence, independence, and ability to adapt. Travelers shared tales of cats' cleverness on ships, in foreign villages, and along trade routes, reinforcing the quiet respect these animals had earned over centuries. In newly established settlements, cats were often among the first animals to arrive. Their adaptability allowed them to navigate unfamiliar terrain, avoid dangers, and integrate into human communities. They became both practical guardians and subtle companions, contributing to the comfort and security of homes, markets, and ships. Through this era of exploration, cats expanded their presence across the world. From Europe to Asia, Africa to distant islands, their journey intertwined with human movement, trade, and discovery. They remained silent witnesses to history, observing and assisting without demanding attention, quietly shaping human life wherever they traveled. As humans began establishing colonies in distant lands, cats quietly accompanied them across oceans. Ships arriving at new settlements often carried cats to protect food supplies from rodents, and these small, adaptable hunters soon became familiar figures in homes, warehouses, and gardens of the colonies. In early colonial villages, cats proved invaluable. Grain, flour, and stored food were precious, and even small infestations could have serious consequences. Cats patrolled houses and storage areas with quiet efficiency, keeping pests in check while remaining largely independent. Their presence allowed settlers to focus on building homes, planting crops, and establishing trade. Beyond their practical skills, cats became companions in these new lands. Families welcomed their calm presence, observing them as they moved gracefully through homes and yards, rested in sunny spots, or silently explored nearby fields. In unfamiliar surroundings, cats offered a subtle sense of continuity and comfort, reminding settlers of homes left behind. Cats also adapted remarkably well to the natural environments of the colonies. Forests, rivers, and open fields became spaces to explore and hunt. Their keen senses allowed them to survive alongside unfamiliar wildlife, while their independence meant that they required little human intervention to thrive. In port towns and trading posts, cats continued their traditional role aboard ships and in warehouses. Merchants appreciated their hunting skills, while the animal's quiet presence added a sense of calm to busy docks. As settlements grew, cats moved between homes, streets, and markets, maintaining their practical and companionable roles in daily life. Stories and observations of cats often spread quickly among settlers. People admired their intelligence, agility, and resilience, noting how they adapted to entirely new worlds. Cats became symbols of independence, subtle guardianship, and calm observation, qualities that complemented the challenges of life in unfamiliar lands. Even in challenging climates or harsh conditions, cats proved resourceful. They found shelter in barns, homes, and gardens, and their quiet hunting skills helped communities maintain food stores through difficult seasons. Their resilience and adaptability reinforced the value of having cats present in both practical and comforting ways. By quietly integrating into colonial life, cats continued the long journey that had begun centuries earlier in ancient Egypt. From homes and temples to ships, towns, and distant settlements, they had traveled alongside humans, providing protection, companionship, and calm observation wherever they went. Their presence in colonial settlements reflected centuries of adaptation, trust, and quiet partnership with people across the world. As settlements grew more established, cats found their way into the gardens and estates of wealthier families. These spaces, carefully designed with flowering plants, hedges, ponds, and courtyards, provided both beauty and shelter, offering cats quiet areas to explore while remaining near humans. In these gardens, cats served practical purposes. They hunted mice, rats, and other small pests that could damage stored food, seeds, or delicate plants. Their presence helped maintain the balance of these cultivated spaces, allowing gardeners and household members to focus on their work without worrying about infestations. Cats adapted to these environments with remarkable grace. They could climb trellises, rest in sun-drenched courtyards, and slip silently among flowers and shrubs. Their soft movements and alert eyes made them both effective hunters and calming companions, blending naturally into spaces that were designed for human enjoyment and relaxation. Beyond practicality, cats brought subtle companionship to estate life. Children and adults alike watched their quiet antics, observing the way they moved, hunted, or rested. Cats encouraged mindfulness, inviting people to slow down and notice the gentle rhythm of daily life. From the rustle of leaves to the soft warmth of sunlight on stone paths, artists and gardeners often took notice of cats in these spaces. Paintings, tapestries, and garden sculptures sometimes included depictions of cats, highlighting their elegance and alertness. Their presence in art and design reflected admiration for both their beauty and their independence, qualities that complemented the carefully curated environment of estates. Cats also served as silent witnesses to the social life of these homes. Visitors, family members, and servants moved through gardens, courtyards, and halls, often unaware of the subtle oversight provided by cats. Their watchful eyes and quiet movements reminded humans that life continued with a gentle balance between activity and calm observation. Even in larger estates, cats adapted to diverse conditions. They found shelter under hedges, in barns, or within shaded nooks of courtyards. Their resilience allowed them to thrive regardless of the weather or the size of the property, maintaining their independence while still remaining connected to human spaces. Through these centuries, gardens and estates became a peaceful setting where cats could continue their ancient journey. They combined usefulness with companionship, calm with curiosity, and grace with independence. In these carefully cultivated spaces, humans and cats learned to coexist in harmony, each respecting the quiet presence of the other. During the Renaissance, cats increasingly appeared not just in homes and gardens, but also in the world of art. Artists who were exploring new ideas about nature, observation, and human experience began to notice the quiet beauty of cats, capturing their elegance, poise, and alertness on canvas, paper, and in decorative works. Cats were admired for their fluid movements and graceful posture. Painters observed how a cat could stretch lazily in a sunbeam or crouch silently before a mouse, and they sought to convey that same elegance in their art. Cats became symbols of attentiveness, independence, and calm observation, qualities that resonated with the Renaissance appreciation for balance, proportion, and the natural world. Illuminated manuscripts and tapestries sometimes featured small cats resting near human figures, observing the scene with quiet interest. Even when not the central subject, cats were included to add life, realism, and a subtle sense of domesticity to the work. Their presence suggested both companionship and the gentle continuity of everyday life. In sculptures and decorative objects, cats were portrayed with meticulous attention to detail. The curve of a tail, the arch of a back, or the delicate placement of paws conveyed not only beauty, but also intelligence and alertness. Artists appreciated that cats moved naturally, providing endless inspiration for the study of form, movement, and character. Cats in art also reflected cultural attitudes. Their subtle independence and mysterious demeanor were celebrated, sometimes linked to ideas of cleverness, observation, and quiet guardianship. They were not depicted as magical or divine in European art as in Egypt, but their presence suggested an admiration for traits humans recognized and valued. Artisans and craftsmen sometimes included cats in decorative household items, ceramics, tiles, and tapestries, showing how deeply cats had become part of human daily life. Their ability to blend into homes and gardens, combined with their graceful presence, made them ideal subjects for subtle representation. Even ordinary people noticed cats in their surroundings. Children watched them play, adults observed their hunting skill, and neighbors admired their poise. The integration of cats into visual culture reflected the broader Renaissance interest in careful observation, not only of humans and landscapes, but of the natural companions that shared human spaces. Through art, cats became immortalized in ways that transcended time. They were quiet witnesses of daily life, symbols of grace and calm, and reminders that beauty and intelligence could exist in both humans and the animals who moved silently alongside them. The Renaissance solidified the cat's role as a source of inspiration, observation, and gentle companionship in human culture. Alongside their presence in art, cats began to weave their way into literature and folklore across Europe. Writers, storytellers, and poets noticed their quiet intelligence, graceful movements, and mysterious behaviors, creating tales that reflected both admiration and curiosity about these subtle companions. Cats often appeared in domestic stories, quietly observing the activities of humans. Tales described them hunting in kitchens, resting in sunlit corners, or interacting with children, highlighting their cleverness and independence. They were seen as intelligent and patient creatures, capable of both playful mischief and calm vigilance, qualities that made them appealing characters in storytelling. In folklore, cats sometimes took on symbolic roles. Their agility and alertness made them associated with cleverness and adaptability. In some stories, they were protectors of homes and food, quietly ensuring the safety of the household. In others, their mysterious behavior inspired tales of magic or mischief, emphasizing their enigmatic and observant nature. Literary references to cats often celebrated their independence. Unlike dogs, cats were not always obedient or easily trained, which made their cooperation all the more impressive. Writers admired their ability to exist alongside humans, helping and observing without losing their autonomy, reflecting the delicate balance between companionship and freedom. Children's stories frequently featured cats as quiet heroes or clever companions. Their natural hunting instincts were sometimes personified as bravery or cleverness, while their calm observation of human life suggested wisdom and patience. These stories encouraged respect for the subtle intelligence of cats, reinforcing their valued presence in the home. Poets also drew inspiration from cats, noting the elegance of their movement, the softness of their fur, and the calm dignity in their behavior. Cats became symbols of grace, contemplation, and quiet alertness, traits admired not only in animals, but in humans striving to observe and understand the world carefully. Even as European societies became more urbanized, cats retained their practical roles in households and marketplaces. Their inclusion in stories and literature reflected a growing recognition of their importance, blending practical admiration with cultural appreciation. Cats were no longer only hunters or companions. They were celebrated as intelligent, mysterious, and meaningful participants in human life. Through literature and folklore, cats became immortalized in human imagination. They were clever, graceful, and independent, quietly influencing stories, morals, and cultural values. In every tale, they reminded humans of the quiet patience, observation, and subtle companionship that had been shared for centuries. As the centuries progressed into the Age of Enlightenment, humans began to observe the natural world with new curiosity and rigor. Cats, ever present in homes, gardens, and ships, became subjects of careful study and observation, not only for their behavior, but for their anatomy and adaptability. Scientists and naturalists noted cats' keen senses and remarkable agility, their ability to navigate narrow spaces, balance on high ledges, and hunt quietly fascinated observers who were beginning to classify and understand animals systematically. Cats' independence and intelligence made them particularly interesting subjects, as they demonstrated behaviors that were both instinctual and subtly adaptable. Anatomists studied the structure of cats' limbs, their flexible spines, and their sharp, retractable claws, recognizing how these features allowed them to move with such grace and precision. Illustrations in scientific texts highlighted the elegance of their form, showing a blend of beauty and function that had long captivated humans. Cats' behavior also drew attention. Observers recorded the way they stalked prey, groomed themselves meticulously, and interacted with humans and other animals. These studies revealed patterns of intelligence, problem solving, and social awareness that deepened humans' understanding of their feline companions. In homes and urban environments, cats continued to demonstrate their adaptability. They navigated crowded streets, observed human activity, and maintained their hunting skills even in changing landscapes. Their resilience and independence illustrated principles of survival, adaptation, and cohabitation that fascinated scientists seeking to understand the natural world. Cats' quiet influence extended beyond observation of physical traits. Their interactions with humans provided insight into social behavior, communication, and companionship. People began to notice the subtle ways cats expressed trust, curiosity, and affection, deepening the bond between humans and animals. By combining practical observation with scientific study, humans began to see cats as more than helpers or companions. They were intelligent, adaptable, and resilient creatures worthy of careful attention. Their presence in homes, gardens, and ships offered continuous opportunity for study, reflection, and admiration. Through this era of scientific curiosity, cats continued their long journey alongside humans. They were silent witnesses to human discovery, companions in daily life, and subjects of careful observation, demonstrating the quiet intelligence and adaptability that had allowed them to thrive across continents and centuries. As the world entered more recent centuries, cats became increasingly common in modern homes across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. No longer only practical hunters or companions on ships and farms, they were now appreciated for their personality, beauty, and calm presence in daily life. In urban homes, cats adapted to smaller living spaces, learning to navigate rooms, staircases, and furniture with remarkable agility. Their quiet movements and independent nature made them ideal companions for families, offering companionship without demanding constant attention. People noticed how cats could bring comfort simply by resting nearby, observing the world, or softly purring in response to gentle touch. Cats also continued their traditional role as guardians of food supplies. Even in towns and cities, stored grains, flowers, and household provisions attracted rodents. Cats moved through kitchens, pantries, and gardens, hunting quietly and helping to maintain order. Their usefulness, paired with their elegance, made them increasingly appreciated in domestic life. Cultural appreciation of cats grew alongside their practical value. Artists, Writers and photographers celebrated their beauty, grace, and intelligence. Cats became common subjects in paintings, books, and later photographs, capturing their personality, expressions, and movements for people to admire and enjoy. Families often observed how cats interacted with children, other pets, and visitors. Their calm demeanor taught patience, observation, and gentleness, while their playful moments added joy and liveliness to homes. Cats became subtle teachers of mindfulness, showing humans how to move gracefully, watch carefully, and appreciate the small details of daily life. Even in busy urban environments, cats adapted remarkably well. They navigated streets, rooftops, and public spaces while maintaining independence and caution. Their ability to survive and thrive in diverse environments highlighted the resilience and intelligence that had allowed them to accompany humans for thousands of years. In modern homes, cats also became symbols of companionship and quiet friendship. They reminded people of the calm and observation that had been valued for centuries, offering comfort, protection, and subtle joy. Their presence connected households to a long history, stretching back through centuries of human civilization, trade, art, and exploration. Through these modern spaces, cats continued their enduring journey, moving seamlessly alongside humans while maintaining their independence. Their calm presence, intelligence, and grace reflected centuries of adaptation, survival, and quiet partnership, ensuring that cats remained cherished members of homes and hearts across the world. As the modern era progressed, cats began to occupy not only homes, but also the imagination of people everywhere. Literature, theater, and later film celebrated their elegance, intelligence, and mysterious behaviors, creating stories and images that reflected centuries of human fascination with these quiet companions. In books and poems, cats were often portrayed as clever, graceful, and independent. They appeared in domestic scenes, observing human activity, moving silently through rooms, or resting in sunlit windows. Writers admired their poise and quiet intelligence, crafting stories that highlighted their subtle influence on human life and their ability to navigate the world with calm attentiveness. Cats also became central figures in folklore and superstition, carrying echoes of older traditions from Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Some stories linked them to luck, cleverness, or protection, while others emphasized their mysterious and unpredictable nature. These narratives reflected humans' ongoing fascination with the balance of independence and companionship that cats embodied. In visual culture, cats appeared in paintings, prints, photographs, and eventually movies and advertisements. Artists captured their graceful movements, expressive eyes, and soft fur, creating enduring images that celebrated both beauty and personality. Cats became symbols of calm observation, subtle elegance, and quiet intelligence, inspiring admiration across generations. Public spaces also became arenas for cats' presence. From city streets to parks and cafes, people observed their independence, adaptability, and playful behaviors. Cats offered comfort, amusement, and companionship in places where human life was busy, noisy, or transient, maintaining a quiet influence on daily experience. Even as technology and society changed, cats' relationship with humans remained remarkably consistent. Their roles as hunters, companions, and observers persisted, but their symbolic and cultural presence expanded. Cats were celebrated not only for what they did, but for who they were, the calm, intelligent, and graceful beings that had traveled with humans for millennia through literature, art, folklore, and daily life. Cats became a bridge between history and modernity. They carried the quiet wisdom of centuries, reminding people of patience, observation, and the subtle joys of companionship. In popular culture, their presence reflected both admiration and affection, connecting humans to a long lineage of feline-human relationships. As cats continued to inspire and comfort, they maintained their role as silent witnesses to human life, blending practical skill, gentle companionship, and cultural significance in a way that few other animals could. As our quiet journey through the history of cats comes to its gentle conclusion, we can pause to reflect on the remarkable path these creatures have traveled alongside humans. From the fertile banks of the Nile, through bustling markets, serene temples, and sunlit gardens, cats have been companions, hunters, observers, and symbols of subtle wisdom. Throughout centuries, they have adapted to every environment humans created: deserts, forests, cities, ships, and estates, always maintaining a balance between independence and companionship. Their presence has been both practical and comforting, protecting food, providing quiet company, and inspiring art, literature, and folklore across cultures. Cats have silently witnessed human history, moving alongside civilizations as they rose and fell. They were in the temples of ancient Egypt, wandering Japanese courtyards, resting in medieval monasteries, and patrolling Renaissance gardens. They have been part of exploration, trade, and everyday life, quietly threading their influence through centuries without ever demanding attention. Their elegance, intelligence, and calm observation have inspired countless stories, paintings, and cultural traditions. Yet, they remain humble in their actions, silent companions that teach humans about patience, awareness, and the gentle rhythms of daily life. Watching a cat move, hunt, or rest is to witness a living connection to history, a subtle reminder of the continuity of life across time and place. As we reflect on this journey, we can appreciate not only the historical significance of cats, but also the quiet comfort they bring to our own lives. They remind us of the small, meaningful roles that patience, observation, and gentle presence can play in shaping the world around us. Now, as our exploration of ancient and modern history with cats comes to an end, let your thoughts slowly settle. Allow the quiet echoes of temples, gardens, ships, and homes to fade gently into the background. Imagine the soft purring, the graceful movements, and the watchful eyes of cats across centuries, quietly guiding us to calm awareness. Let this serenity carry you into rest as the past, present, and the gentle presence of these animals blend into a peaceful stillness. Thank you for sharing this quiet moment with me. Allow your mind to drift, your body to relax, and the calm, enduring companionship of cats to accompany you into sleep. Good night.